New students are interesting, and new students are perhaps those that have done work with us for 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 years. They tend to they remind me of little birds. I work a lot with birds here at home, and I've watched the young as they fly in every year, the kookaburras and the butcher birds and the parrots, and the babies come in and they're always screaming and yelling and making a noise and flapping their wings, and they want more and more and more. And they have this wonderful little attitude of give me, give me, give me, and they sort of stalk the parents, and they constantly want it to be filled and to be nourished and to be fed, and they want what the parent can eat. But one of the things that I've noticed about these young birds is that the parents catch the food first, and they swallow it, and they partly digest it, they break it up. They make it into something that the young can actually then eat and feed from. Or the parent then, for other types of birds that don't have those crops, is that the parent catches the food, and the parent knows what food is good for the young, and they feed them. But it's the noisiness of the young birds that amuses me. Their demanding attitude for wanting more and more and more and more. And often they're not content with just a small morsel or a little worm that's given to them. This is the same with new students that tend to begin with us. They're quite aware of the students that have done a lot of work in many years, and they know there's a lot more. And if they're perceptive, they realize there's so much knowledge based in this group and learning that we may not even reach the end of it in a lifetime. But in the beginning, they really want a lot, and it's for us as teachers to understand and to know what knowledge to disseminate between which students. We watch, and we watch the tempering in the new students, and when they stop screaming for more and they stop wanting to just have more and more information, more information, more information, and learn more, and they actually slow down with that process and they begin to digest whatever they're given, whether it's a morsel or whether it's a whole meal, or when they start to digest it for themselves, and we see the growth, the exponential growth in the student, and we can see that they are being nourished by the morsels that they are being given, and they quieten down from that screaming and yelling and demanding and insisting and moaning and complaining and whatever it is you want to call it. That's when we know that they're starting to move into a whole new phase of their spiritual walk. It's when they're starting to gain a little bit more maturity. And then, of course, we start to introduce teachings that are more meatier, that take big digestion. And remember, spiritual information or knowledge or wisdom comes forward very much like the food that we find on our plates. We have the fruit, it's sweet, and it gives us an automatic pickup. And then there's, of course, knowledge that's like vegetables, easily digested, very healthy for us. And then there's, of course, the meats, and these are the proteins, and they take a long time to digest and break down. So these are the layers of knowledge that are coming through all the time. And we're quite aware of those that can really only digest certain things, and we have to be sensitive to that. There is no part of us that is bringing knowledge forward that seeks to confine or to box someone. Never ever that has it ever occurred in me anyway. I tend to just, and I can put personality and everything aside. I put Jay Lee aside, and I just allow things to move through me. Now, if only a sentence comes through from beyond for a person, then that's all that I am being shown that they can digest. If a good bowl full of knowledge comes through, or a whole plate full comes through, that's what comes through for each person. I just get out of the way. I do find that the egos, which are eager in the beginning, especially for new people that under 5 years anyway, they're eager. They want to eat everything. And people really don't understand that this whole journey is a lifetime journey. In other words, your whole nervous system has to be prepared for each step of the knowledge that comes through. If you have a blockage in your Kundalini chakra, a lot of knowledge is not going to come through. If you have a blockage in your sacral chakra, in your creativity, and you have a lot of pain and suffering, a lot of knowledge is not going to come through for you. If you have a blockage in your solar plexus, where you have the warring of the goods and the bads and the domination and the victim, a lot of knowledge is not going to come through for you. Likewise, if you have a block in your heart, things can't come through. So I can only bring through what I'm shown that you are capable of digesting. I don't make that decision about you, but I also can't force things to come through me that you're not ready for. I'm actually incapable of doing that. Energetically, I cannot. And if I ever had the ludicrous thought of trying to even stray into that area of bringing nonsense through just to appease you, I'm going to do myself harm and I'm going to do you harm. And there's a good chance I will be cut off from the streams of knowledge if I do something that unimpeccable. A lot of times when students move from the young state into a more intermediate and a more mature state, they're learning patience, that questions may only be answered in 1 year's time, in 2 years' time, when the student is ready. The teacher's always ready. They've got the knowledge, but it's when they're shown the student is ready. So I do watch, I pay attention, and often we have a look to see if someone is capable of moving to the next digestion phase by throwing out a nugget, throwing out something. And we throw out perhaps that they need to let go of something, perhaps they need to go and look in their past, perhaps they need to go look at this. And if we receive word back from a student, they refuse to look in their past, they will not go and look at that, they don't have whatever we've suggested, it clearly indicates to us they're not ready to move forward to the next place. There's an interesting set of events that always takes place the whole way through. I've mapped this from the beginning of my conscious life when I became conscious, which was over 30 years ago. That's 3 decades. I've been mapping and watching, and there's phases where you can't take 2 steps forward if you don't go and address your past, if you don't go and address the anchors that you have lying in your past, way back even into the womb. If you don't go and address those, you cannot energetically move forward even 2 steps. And it can feel as if that the knowledge has been closed off and it's not coming to you. And as the usual ego does, it begins to project onto the teachers that the teachers are holding back and won't give you what you want. There's a lot more happening than what meets the eye. So if we suggest to someone, go look at your past, if we suggest that you need to take care of something in your heart, if you need to take care of an entity, if you have a personality construct that likes alcohol too much, likes partying too much, highly dependent on other people, we're going to ask you to go and address those things, because if you don't move forward another step. And we can't force you to do these things. We can just suggest. And often the responses we get is, well, I don't need to go and look at my past. Well, I don't need to do this and I don't need to do that. And at that very moment, when the student has made their choice, we can't actually move forward in giving them more and more knowledge, because the one thing that I was very, very deeply trained in with the Tibetan master is that there are two minds, and one leads to death and one leads to everlasting life. I sat with that for 15 years. I got taken through processes until I got to understand what the two minds were. So I'm acutely at an exceptionally cognizant, conscious level, acutely aware of the two minds. And when the one mind in a student comes and addresses and asks questions, I'm very hesitant to feed the wrong mind. I always will be. You could call me a cautious teacher, whereas I'm sure if you go and have a look in the world, you'll find maverick teachers. And good luck if that is what you want. For me, I like a solid base, a solid foundation, where students are immovable, that the world can turn around them and they are not budged. And I'm looking for that in each person, that solid state where they have reached a maturity that is so patient and so beautiful and so aware. So just know that there are different places, and I've had to go through each one of those myself. So as I've always stated and mandated, I speak from what I've experienced, and I'm not going to speak and teach just because a student is like a little bird wanting more and more and more and more and more. That's not the kind of teacher I am. So that's just a little bit of an insight into young students who are very eager, beautifully eager, yet need to learn temperance and certainly need to learn patience. Thank you.